What if events went differently, and Cassandra Nova succeeded in killing Deadpool and Wolverine in the latest MCU film? Welcome back, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, to another gripping what-if scenario. Today we're diving into a dark and intense alternate timeline, where one of the X-Men's most dangerous foes, Cassandra Nova, triumphs over Deadpool and Wolverine. Imagine a universe where the regenerative abilities of these iconic heroes just aren't enough to save them from Nova's ruthless assault. How would their deaths impact the balance of power within the MCU? Would Cassandra Nova finally reshape the multiverse in her own image? It's a very interesting what-if scenario that I thought of right when I saw this movie. I saw this first day on a Thursday, and I was like, I need to do this what-if scenario. Like, it was just so interesting, and I didn't want to spoil it for anybody because I was like, I'm gonna wait a week or two, see what happens. But seeing all those different characters in the void, and, you know, with Eliath, like, I was like, I'm gonna take the opportunity to do something very interesting and see what might have happened if Deadpool didn't save his universe, and what could have happened. I mean, it's very interesting to, you know, fantasize about. But before we dive into this dramatic narrative, if you guys enjoy the infinite possibilities of the multiverse, consider supporting my work on Patreon as well as my Substack. Your support allows me to create more content, dive deeper into these what-if scenarios, and push the boundaries of our imagination. So thank you for being a part of this journey. I'm gonna stop talking because let's get into the brand new what-if scenario. The battlefield was a maelstrom of chaos and destruction, with shattered buildings and swirling energy, marking the ruins of Earth 10,005. Deadpool and Wolverine, bruised and battered, fought with every ounce of strength they had left, struggling to keep up with Cassandra Nova's overwhelming power. The Time Ripper, an ancient device of unimaginable power, glowed ominously in her hands, crackling with energy as she prepared to seize control of all timelines. Deadpool, usually a fountain of irreverent quips, found his trademark wisecracks dying in his throat, replaced by a grim realization. He glanced at Wolverine, whose unyielding resolve was etched on his face, despite the deep cuts and burns marring his body. They both knew this might be the end as they continued to hold on tight. "This is the end," Nova declared, her voice echoing with cold finality across the battlefield. She activated the Time Ripper, and a web of temporal energy began to weave around her, distorting reality itself. Time and space seemed to bend at her will, merging and manipulating timelines to her whim. As the battlefield was bathed in an eerie glow, Deadpool and Wolverine shared a silent look. They had faced impossible odds before, but never on such a cosmic scale. They knew the gravity of the situation. They were the last line of defense against a threat that could unravel the entire multiverse. With a roar, they charged at Nova and the Time Ripper in a desperate attempt to stop her. The ground beneath them cracked and splintered, the fabric of reality itself struggling against the manipulation. They reached the device, their muscles straining as they prepared to strike with their combined might. But just as their attacks connected, the Time Ripper released a blinding burst of energy. Deadpool looking one last time at Logan, whose body began fading away. "I'm sorry," Deadpool said. They were engulfed in a searing light, their bodies disintegrating and turning to dust. Their last moments were spent holding on to each other, a silent acknowledgement of their shared fate. As the light faded, nothing remained of Deadpool and Wolverine but empty space. Nova's cold, triumphant laughter filled the air as she stood over the battlefield, the Time Ripper pulsing with energy. The two heroes were gone, erased from existence, and their sacrifice appeared to be in vain. The battlefield fell silent as the remaining Resistance members stared in horror at the spot where their comrades had stood. The Time Ripper's power surged, and the very fabric of Earth 10,005 began to unravel. Skyscrapers twisted and crumbled, and entire cities were swallowed by voids of nothingness. The world was tearing apart at the seams, a once vibrant and chaotic realm now reduced to a desolate wasteland. Nova's influence spread like a plague, consuming timelines and merging realities into a nightmarish tapestry of chaos. The multiverse, once a vast expanse of infinite possibilities, was now under her iron grip. Entire civilizations vanished, their histories erased in the blink of an eye. One of the first to fall was Earth 838, a peaceful utopia where the Avengers had maintained peace for decades. Its skies darkened under the shadow of Nova's power, and its heroes, no matter how valiant, were no match for her relentless forces. Their reality crumbled into nothingness, their existence snuffed out as if they had never been. Meanwhile, in the Time Variance Authority, TVA, alarms blared and screens flashed with alerts as timelines began collapsing at an alarming rate. Hunter B-15, her face a mask of determination, rushed through the corridors of the TVA's central hub, her voice tight with urgency as she issued orders. "We're running out of time," B-15 muttered, her eyes scanning the chaotic displays. "If we don't stop her, the entire multiverse will be lost." Beside her, Mr. Paradox, a seasoned TVA analyst with a deep understanding of temporal anomalies, nodded grimly. "We need a plan, and fast, but without Deadpool and Wolverine, our chances are slim." In a desperate move, the TVA assembled a team of heroes from surviving timelines. Among those chosen were Elektra, the deadly assassin, Blade, the relentless vampire hunter, and Gambit, the Cajun mutant with a flair for the dramatic. Each brought their unique skills and unwavering resolve to the mission: infiltrate Nova's citadel and destroy the Time Ripper. The journey to Nova's stronghold was perilous, the landscape a twisted blend of different realities. Temporal anomalies and hostile forces filled every corner of the multiverse, making progress difficult. The team faced numerous challenges, but they pressed on, knowing the fate of countless worlds rested on their shoulders. As they approached Nova's citadel, a towering fortress that loomed over the chaotic landscape, they moved with caution, aware that their every step was being watched. Inside, Nova observed their advance with a mixture of amusement and irritation. She underestimated their resolve, but she was prepared. When the Resistance finally breached the inner sanctum, they were met with overwhelming force. Nova's loyalists, twisted versions of familiar heroes and villains, stood ready to defend their mistress. The battle was fierce, with explosions and energy blasts lighting up the darkened skies. Elektra, Blade, and Gambit fought with everything they had, cutting through waves of enemies with a ferocity born of desperation. But as the battle wore on, it became clear that Nova's power was immense. She seemed invincible, her control over the Time Ripper making her nearly untouchable. In a moment of desperation, Elektra's mind raced, searching for any possible advantage. "We can't beat her in a straight fight," she shouted over the din of battle, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "But we can outsmart her." Blade and Gambit nodded in agreement, and together they devised a risky plan to outmaneuver Nova and reach the Time Ripper. The plan hinged on distracting Nova long enough to disrupt her control over the device. The team launched a coordinated assault on Nova's stronghold, fighting valiantly as they executed their plan. They used every trick and tactic they knew to keep Nova off balance. Slowly but surely, they began to make progress, inching closer to the Time Ripper. Inside the heart of the Citadel, the air crackled with tension as the final showdown began. Nova, sensing the impending threat, used the Time Ripper to create duplicates of herself, each one as deadly as the original. The Resistance was pushed to their limits, fighting for survival against seemingly insurmountable odds. Gambit, ever the gambler, saw a fleeting opportunity. With a flick of his wrist, he hurled a charged card at the Time Ripper. The explosion caused the device to malfunction, sending waves of unstable energy through the room. Nova's scream of fury echoed through the Citadel as she struggled to maintain control. But despite their best efforts, Nova's power proved too great. She used the Time Ripper's energy to amplify her own abilities, stabilizing the multiverse under her absolute rule. The Resistance members, their spirits crushed, were forced to retreat. Nova's victory was complete. The multiverse remained a fractured, nightmarish realm, with Nova's Citadel as the dark heart of her empire. The surviving Resistance members were scattered, their spirits crushed, but their resolve unbroken. They retreated to the shadows, plotting their next move in an endless struggle against an unstoppable tyrant. In the midst of this chaos, Loki, the god of mischief, watched the unraveling of the multiverse from his vantage point within the TVA. Recognizing the existential threat Nova posed, he decided to intervene. His mastery of time and trickery would be put to the test against this formidable foe. Loki's appearance was as sudden as it was dramatic. He materialized in Nova's Citadel, his eyes gleaming with mischief as he confronted her. "Nova," he greeted her with a chilling smile. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "You think you can stop me?" Nova replied, her voice dripping with contempt. "I've seen your future, and it holds nothing but failure." But Loki was not one to back down easily. "You're destabilizing the very fabric of reality," he said, his tone serious. "This must end." Despite his efforts, Loki found himself outmatched. Nova's control over the Time Ripper was absolute, and she quickly neutralized his tricks. She imprisoned Loki within a temporal loop, ensuring he could never interfere again. His cries for help echoed through the empty corridors of the TVA, a grim reminder of Nova's unchallenged dominance. With Loki neutralized and Deadpool's universe destroyed, Nova's reign continued unopposed. She began merging timelines at an accelerated pace, creating a chaotic multiverse where her rule was absolute. Heroes and villains alike were twisted into loyal servants or wiped from existence. The remaining Resistance members, scattered and weakened, struggled to regroup. Elektra, Blade, and Gambit led the remnants of the rebellion, their numbers dwindling with each passing day. They knew that without a miracle, the multiverse would remain under Nova's tyrannical control forever. In this alternate timeline, Cassandra Nova's triumph reshaped the multiverse into a nightmarish realm under her iron fist. Deadpool and Wolverine's resistance served as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the fight against tyranny must continue. Their story became a legend, inspiring future generations to rise against oppression, no matter the cost. The surviving Resistance members, though few, continued to fight in the shadows, seeking any opportunity to challenge Nova's rule. The multiverse lay in ruins, a twisted and nightmarish realm where Cassandra Nova reigned supreme. Her citadel, an imposing structure of dark, jagged spires, loomed over the landscape like a monument to despair. Within its walls, the Time Ripper pulsed with an ominous glow, its energies holding the shattered timelines in a precarious balance. But even in this age of darkness, the embers of resistance still burned. Deep in the bowels of the multiverse, far from the reach of Nova's loyalists, a hidden sanctuary housed the remnants of the rebellion. Elektra, Blade, and Gambit. 3 of the last surviving heroes stood around a holographic display. The sanctuary was a dimly lit chamber filled with advanced technology, salvaged from various timelines, providing the Resistance with the means to continue their fight. "This can't go on," Elektra said, her voice filled with quiet resolve as she studied the display, which flickered with images of collapsing realities. "We can't keep running and hiding. We need to strike back." Blade nodded, his eyes narrowing as he adjusted the grip on his sword. "Agreed. But we need to plan something that can turn the tide. Nova's power is too great to confront head-on." Gambit, leaning casually against the wall, flicked a charged card between his fingers. "We tried hitting her with brute force, and look where that got us," he said with a smirk that belied the gravity of the situation. "Maybe it's time we think outside the box." Elektra glanced at Gambit, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "You're right. We need to exploit her weaknesses. The Time Ripper may be powerful, but it's not invincible. If we can find a way to disrupt its energy source, we might stand a chance." As the trio strategized, a figure emerged from the shadows of the chamber. It was Mr. Paradox, the TVA analyst who had managed to escape the collapse of his timeline. His expression was grim, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I may have a solution," Paradox said, stepping forward. "The Time Ripper is a complex device, but it's not of this multiverse. It was created in a timeline that was erased long ago. A timeline that may still have a fragment of its original energy source. If we can locate that fragment, we might be able to sever Nova's connection to the device." Elektra, Blade, and Gambit exchanged glances. It was a long shot, but it was the best lead they had. "Where do we find this fragment?" Blade asked, his voice steady. Paradox hesitated, then pulled up a series of coordinates on the holographic display. "It's located in a collapsed timeline known as Earth 295, the Age of Apocalypse. That timeline was destroyed years ago, but a sliver of its energy remains hidden in the ruins. Getting there won't be easy, and extracting the fragment will be even harder." "Sounds like a vacation," Gambit quipped, though his tone was serious. "But we've faced worse odds before." Elektra nodded, her mind already working through the details of the mission. "We'll need to move quickly and quietly. Nova's forces will be searching for us, and if they find out what we're up to, they'll stop at nothing to destroy us." As they prepared for the journey, the sanctuary buzzed with activity. The Resistance was small but resourceful, and each member worked tirelessly to ensure the success of the mission. Supplies were gathered, weapons were checked, and transport was arranged, a cobbled-together ship capable of navigating the fractured multiverse. The ship, named the Last Hope, was a relic from a destroyed timeline, its hull scarred and battered from countless battles. But it was fast, and it was their only means of reaching Earth 295. As the team boarded, they knew the risks they were taking. This mission could very well be their last. As the ship tore through the fabric of reality, the crew was met with sights both wondrous and terrifying. They passed through worlds where time flowed backward, where gravity defied logic, and where entire civilizations existed in the blink of an eye. The multiverse was in chaos, each timeline more unstable than the last. Finally, they reached the remnants of Earth 295. The landscape was desolate, a wasteland of crumbling ruins and twisted metal. Once a world ruled by the tyrant apocalypse, it was now a graveyard of lost hopes and forgotten dreams. The air was thick with the remnants of battles long past, and the sky was a perpetual twilight. The Resistance team disembarked cautiously, their senses alert for any signs of danger. The energy fragment they sought was located deep within the remains of Apocalypse's citadel, a labyrinthine fortress that had been the seat of his power. The citadel was now little more than a ruin, but its halls were still dangerous, filled with traps and the remnants of Apocalypse's twisted experiments. As they ventured deeper into the citadel, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air charged with residual energy from the timeline's collapse. The team moved with precision, each member using their unique skills to navigate the treacherous terrain. Elektra led the way, her keen senses guiding them through the labyrinth. Blade's combat instincts were on high alert, ready to fend off any threats that might emerge from the shadows. Gambit's agility and quick thinking allowed him to disarm traps and bypass security systems that had survived the destruction. Finally, they reached the heart of the Citadel, a chamber where the energy fragment was kept. The fragment itself was a small pulsing orb of light, suspended in a containment field. Its glow was faint, but the power it held was immense. "This is it," Paradox said, his voice barely a whisper. "The fragment. If we can extract it and integrate it into the Time Ripper, we might be able to disrupt Nova's control." Elektra approached the containment field cautiously. "How do we get it out without triggering whatever defenses are left?" Paradox stepped forward, his hands moving deftly over a control panel that had survived the Citadel's collapse. "Leave that to me," he said, his voice steady. "But I need time. Keep watch and be ready to move." As Paradox worked to disable the containment field, the team stood guard, their senses on high alert. The Citadel was eerily silent, but the tension in the air was palpable. They knew that any moment could bring disaster. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The Citadel's ancient defenses, long dormant, began to activate. Automated turrets emerged from the walls, their barrels glowing with energy as they powered up. "Looks like we've overstayed our welcome," Gambit muttered as he readied his staff. Blade drew his sword, his eyes narrowing. "We need to hold them off until Paradox can get that fragment." The battle was intense. The team fought off wave after wave of automated defenses, their movements synchronized as they worked to protect Paradox. Elektra's blades danced through the air, slicing through the turrets with deadly precision. Blade's swordsmanship was unmatched, each strike precise and lethal. Gambit's kinetic powers allowed him to turn the very environment into a weapon, using charged debris to disable the turrets. But the Citadel was relentless. More defenses activated, including energy barriers that threatened to cut the team off from each other. The situation grew dire as the resistance was pushed to its limits. Finally, with a burst of light, Paradox succeeded in disabling the containment field. The energy fragment was free, its pulsing light growing brighter, as it responded to the temporal energies surrounding it. "I've got it," Paradox shouted, holding the fragment up triumphantly. "But we need to get out of here, now!" With the fragment secured, the team made a hasty retreat, fighting their way back through the Citadel. The structure began to collapse around them, the strain of the battle causing its ancient foundations to crumble. The last hope was their only chance of escape. As they neared the ship, the ground shook violently. The Citadel was coming down and time was running out. In a final, desperate sprint, the team boarded the last hope and powered up the engines. The ship lifted off just as the Citadel collapsed in a massive explosion of debris and energy. The crew of the Last Hope barely had time to catch their breath as the ship hurtled through the multiverse, the energy fragments safely stored in a containment chamber. But there was no time to celebrate. They knew that Nova would not remain idle for long, and that their final confrontation was drawing near. "We have what we need," Elektra said, her voice resolute. "Now it's time to take the fight to Nova." As the last hope sped through the fractured multiverse, the Resistance knew that the real battle was yet to come. They had one shot to use the energy fragment against the Time Ripper and disrupt Nova's control. Failure was not an option. The fate of countless realities hung in the balance. And so as they prepared for the final confrontation, the Resistance steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. The multiverse was a shattered and chaotic realm, but as long as they had breath in their bodies, they would continue to fight. Cassandra Nova's reign would not go unchallenged. The Resistance had found a glimmer of hope in the darkness, and they were determined to see it through to the end. The fractured multiverse hurtled towards its inevitable climax as the last hope sped through the void between realities. Inside, the Resistance prepared for their final confrontation with Cassandra Nova. The energy fragment from Earth 295, now safely contained, pulsed with an almost sentient glow, its power a beacon of hope in their desperate struggle. Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and Mr. Paradox gathered in the ship's control room, each weighed down by the gravity of the mission ahead. The air was thick with tension, but also with determination. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to falter now. Elektra stood at the helm, her eyes focused on the display that showed their rapidly approaching destination, Nova's Citadel, the heart of her empire. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. "We have one chance to end this, and we need to make it count." Blade nodded, his grip tightening on his sword. "We disrupt the Time Ripper's energy source with the fragment, then take out Nova before she can react, quick and clean." Gambit, always the wild card, flipped a playing card between his fingers, the faint glow of kinetic energy illuminating his smirk. "Quick, clean, and with a bit of style. Let's give Nova a show she won't forget." Mr. Paradox, who had been carefully monitoring the energy fragment's readings, interjected with a note of caution. "The fragment's power is unpredictable. We'll need to get close to the Time Ripper to integrate it, and there's no guarantee what will happen when we do. The multiverse is already unstable. This could go very wrong." Elektra turned to face him, her gaze unwavering. "We don't have a choice. Whatever the risks, we face them. For everyone we've lost, for the world she's destroyed, we do this." The team exchanged final nods of agreement. Their resolve solidified. Each knew the role they had to play, and each understood the stakes. The last hope shuddered as it exited the void and entered the chaotic space surrounding Nova's citadel. The twisted remnants of countless timelines floated in the void like shattered glass, creating a landscape of jagged reality fragments. As the ship approached the citadel, Nova's defenses sprang to life. Turrets and drones, imbued with the energy of the Time Ripper, swarmed towards them. Blade and Gambit manned the ship's weapon systems, firing blasts of energy to clear a path through the onslaught. "They're putting up a hell of a fight," Blade muttered, his expression grim as he targeted a wave of drones. "We're not going to get close enough at this rate." Elektra's eyes narrowed as she assessed the situation. "We need to draw their fire away from the ship. Gambit, Blade, get ready for a little detour." Gambit grinned, understanding immediately. "Time to take this party outside?" With a quick nod from Elektra, the two men strapped on their gear and prepared to exit the ship. As the last hope made a sharp turn, Gambit and Blade launched themselves into the void, using their skills to navigate the chaotic battlefield. Gambit's kinetic energy propelled him through space, while Blade's enhanced reflexes allowed him to slice through drones with deadly precision. Their diversion worked. The drones swarmed after them, giving Elektra and Mr. Paradox the opportunity to pilot the Last Hope closer to the Citadel. The ship's shields flickered under the strain of the remaining defenses, but they held steady. Inside the Citadel, Cassandra Nova sensed the approach of her enemies. Her eyes glowed with malevolent energy as she watched the Resistance's final gambit unfold. "Fools," she muttered, her voice dripping with contempt. "They think they can defy me?" She raised her hands, channeling the power of the Time Ripper. With a mere thought, she summoned twisted versions of fallen heroes, warped reflections of those who had once opposed her. These dark echoes, their eyes filled with voids, awaited her command. "Destroy them," Nova ordered, sending her minions to confront the Resistance. Elektra and Mr. Paradox maneuvered the ship through the Citadel's outer defenses, but as they neared the heart of the fortress, they were forced to land. The air crackled with energy as they disembarked, the energy fragment glowing brighter with each step closer to the Time Ripper. The corridors of the Citadel were a labyrinth of shadow and light, each twist and turn designed to disorient intruders. But Elektra's senses were honed, and she guided them with precision, even as the echoing footsteps of Nova's minions drew nearer. As they reached the central chamber, the full scale of the Time Ripper's power became evident. The device floated in the center of the room, its core a swirling vortex of temporal energy. The walls around it were lined with screens displaying countless realities, each one flickering as Nova manipulated their fates. Elektra's grip tightened on her weapons as she approached the Time Ripper. "Paradox, how do we do this?" Mr. Paradox, his hands trembling slightly, began calibrating the energy fragment. "We need to insert the fragment directly into the Time Ripper's core. It should disrupt Nova's control long enough for us to take her down. But once we start, we'll have only moments before she notices." "Then we don't waste any time," Elektra said, positioning herself between the Time Ripper and the approaching threat. Before they could begin, the doors to the chamber burst open, and Nova's twisted minions poured in. Dark versions of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and others charged forward, their movements jerky and unnatural. These were not the heroes they once knew, but corrupted versions bent to Nova's will. Elektra leaped into action, her blades flashing as she engaged the twisted Spider-Man in a deadly dance. The corrupted hero moved with eerie speed, his reflexes matching her own, but Elektra's focus was razor sharp, and she countered his attacks with lethal precision. Mr. Paradox worked furiously at the Time Ripper, the energy fragment glowing brighter as he prepared to integrate it. But Nova's minions were relentless, and Elektra found herself outnumbered. Just as she began to falter, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Need a hand, Cher?" Gambit and Blade charged into the chamber, having fought their way through the Citadel's defenses. Gambit's charged cards exploded in bursts of energy, clearing a path through the corrupted heroes. Blade's sword cut through the darkness, his movements a blur as he dispatched the remaining minions. With the path cleared, Mr. Paradox finally completed the calibration. "Now, Elektra," he shouted, holding the fragment steady. "We need to do it now." Elektra, her heart pounding, took the fragment from Paradox and with a single fluid motion, plunged it into the core of the Time Ripper. The effect was immediate. The device sputtered, its energy fluctuating wildly as the fragment began to destabilize it. The entire chamber shook as the Time Ripper's power was thrown into disarray. The screens lining the walls flickered violently, the realities they displayed distorting and collapsing. Nova, sensing the disruption, materialized in the chamber with a furious scream. "What have you done?" she bellowed, her eyes blazing with fury. Elektra, Gambit, and Blade stood their ground as Nova advanced on them, her power crackling around her like a storm. But even as she gathered her energy for a final, devastating attack, the Time Ripper continued to destabilize, its core now a chaotic maelstrom of energy. "You think you've won?" Nova snarled, her voice dripping with venom. "I am the master of time. I will reshape reality itself to undo your meddling." But before Nova could unleash her power, Mr. Paradox activated a sequence on his control panel. "Not today," he said, his voice calm but firm. The energy fragment inside the Time Ripper reached critical mass, and with a final, deafening crack, the device imploded. The resulting shockwave sent everyone in the chamber flying. Nova screamed as she was engulfed in the explosion of temporal energy, her form disintegrating as the very power she sought to control turned against her. The walls of the chamber shattered, and the screens displaying the multiverse went dark, as the Citadel itself began to collapse. Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and Mr. Paradox struggled to their feet, disoriented by the blast. The Citadel was falling apart around them, but they knew they couldn't stay. With no time to lose, they made a mad dash for the last hope, which was miraculously still intact despite the devastation. As they boarded the ship and launched into the void, the Citadel crumbled behind them, collapsing into a singularity that swallowed the remains of Nova's empire. The Time Ripper was gone, and with it, the immediate threat to the multiverse. But as the last hope sailed through the now quiet void, the crew knew their battle was far from over. The multiverse was still fractured, and countless realities had been lost in the chaos. But with Nova defeated, there was hope for restoration, and the Resistance's fight would continue. Elektra sat in the ship's cockpit, her mind already turning to the future. "We've won a battle," she said, her voice resolute. "But the war isn't over. There's still so much to rebuild." Gambit, ever the optimist, gave her a grin. "One step at a time, Cher. We took down Nova. Nothing's impossible after that." Blade nodded, his expression as serious as ever. "We'll find a way to put things right. We owe it to everyone we've lost." Mr. Paradox, though exhausted, managed a faint smile. "The multiverse is resilient. It's been through worse and survived. With time, it can heal." As the last hope disappeared into the vastness of space, the crew knew that they carried the weight of countless realities on their shoulders. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but as long as they stood together, they believed they could overcome whatever came next. And so, with the ruins of Nova's Citadel far behind them, the Resistance began its journey toward a new future. A future where hope still flickered in the darkness, where heroes still rose to fight against tyranny, and where the multiverse, no matter how fractured, could be made whole again. The void of space stretched endlessly before the last hope, a vast expanse of stars and galaxies that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless realities. Inside the ship, the crew, Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and Mr. Paradox sat in contemplative silence. The weight of their recent victory against Cassandra Nova hung heavily in the air, tempered by the knowledge that the multiverse was still far from healed. Elektra stared out of the viewport, her thoughts a whirlwind of past battles and uncertain futures. Blade methodically cleaned his sword, the familiar ritual grounding him in the present. Gambit, ever the optimist, idly shuffled a deck of cards, the rhythmic sound a soothing counterpoint to the silence. Mr. Paradox busied himself with recalibrating the ship's systems, though his mind was clearly elsewhere. The quiet was abruptly shattered by a soft, resonant voice that seemed to echo from every corner of the ship. Well done, heroes. You have accomplished what few could ever hope to achieve. The crew snapped to attention, weapons drawn as they scanned the room for the source of the voice. Before them, a figure began to materialize. A tall, imposing being with a bald head and deep-set, all-seeing eyes. He wore a flowing blue robe, and his presence exuded an aura of immense power and ancient wisdom. Elektra's eyes narrowed, recognizing the figure from ancient texts and whispered legends. "Who are you?" she demanded, though there was a note of reverence in her voice. The figure's gaze swept over them, his expression calm and serene. "I am Uatu, the Watcher. I observe all that transpires in the multiverse, though I rarely intervene, but your actions have warranted my appearance." "The Watcher?" Gambit echoed, lowering his staff slightly. "You're the guy who watches everything but doesn't get involved, right?" "Indeed," the Watcher replied, his voice as steady as the stars. "But there are times when even I must break my vow of non-interference. Your defeat of Cassandra Nova has preserved the delicate balance of the multiverse, and for that I offer my gratitude." Blade sheathed his sword, though his stance remained wary. "What do you want from us?" The Watcher's gaze softened. "I seek to offer you a choice, not a demand. The multiverse, though wounded, is vast and full of endless possibilities. Each of you has shown great courage, resilience, and resourcefulness. In recognition of your deeds, I present to you an opportunity to explore new realities, to shape the futures of worlds yet unseen." Elektra stepped forward, her curiosity piqued. "You're offering us new universes? Why?" "Because you have proven yourselves as guardians of the multiverse," the Watcher replied. "In each universe, there are moments of crisis, pivotal events where the fate of an entire reality may hinge on the actions of a few. I offer you the chance to become agents of change, to influence the course of history and worlds beyond your own." Gambit raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "So, we just hop around different universes playing hero?" The Watcher smiled slightly. "Something like that. But it is not without risk. Each universe has its own challenges, its own rules. You will encounter versions of people you know, but different in ways you cannot predict. And once you enter a new universe, your choices will shape its destiny, for better or for worse." Blade considered the Watcher's words carefully. "And if we refuse, then you may return to your lives in your original universe, to continue the fight in the shadows as you have always done. The choice is yours, but know this, by accepting my offer, you have the chance to do more than just survive. You can thrive and perhaps find a sense of purpose that has eluded you in your own timeline." The room fell into silence as the crew absorbed the magnitude of the Watcher's offer. Elektra, always driven by a need for redemption, found the idea of new worlds, new opportunities, deeply appealing. Gambit, ever the adventurer, was drawn to the idea of exploring the unknown. Blade, the eternal warrior, saw it as a chance to continue his mission on a grander scale. Mr. Paradox, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "What of the multiverse we leave behind? If we go, who will protect it?" The Watcher's expression grew somber. "The multiverse will always face threats, but it will also always have its defenders. Others will rise to take your place. But the choice remains yours. Stay and fight the battles you know, or step into the unknown and become something more." Elektra looked at her companions, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "I think we all know what we're going to do," she said, her voice firm. "We've fought and bled for this multiverse. Maybe it's time we take on a new challenge." Blade nodded, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "I've fought monsters all my life. I'm ready to face whatever's out there." Gambit grinned, his decision made. "Sounds like an adventure. I'm in." Mr. Paradox, though hesitant, finally nodded in agreement. "If we can make a difference in other realities, then it's worth the risk." The Watcher's eyes gleamed with approval. "Very well, your journey begins now." With a wave of his hand, the Watcher conjured a series of portals, each leading to a different universe. The crew could see glimpses of the worlds beyond, one filled with towering skyscrapers and advanced technology, another teeming with lush alien landscapes, and yet another that appeared to be a dystopian wasteland where survival was the only law. Each portal leads to a universe that is in need of your unique skills, the Watcher explained. "Choose wisely, for once you enter there is no turning back. I will watch over you as I have watched over countless others, but your choices will determine the fate of the worlds you enter." Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and Mr. Paradox exchanged final glances, silently affirming their commitment to the path ahead. With a deep breath, Elektra stepped forward, choosing the portal that led to a world of advanced technology. A universe where her skills as a warrior and assassin would be put to the ultimate test. Blade followed, selecting a portal that opened to a world shrouded in eternal night. A realm where vampires and other creatures of the night reigned supreme. This was his calling, a never-ending battle against the darkness. Gambit, ever the gambler, chose a portal that led to a vibrant, chaotic world, full of opportunities and dangers alike. It was a place where his wit, charm, and powers would be both a boon and a curse. Mr. Paradox, the last to choose, hesitated only a moment before stepping through a portal leading to a timeline in flux, where time itself was the greatest enemy. It was a place where his knowledge and expertise could turn the tide of an impending catastrophe. As the portals closed behind them, the Watcher remained, his gaze fixed on the now empty chamber. "Farewell, heroes," he murmured, his voice soft. "May your journeys bring balance to the multiverse." With that, the Watcher faded into the ether, leaving only the infinite possibilities of the multiverse in his wake. The last hope was gone, but its crew had embarked on new adventures, each in a universe that needed them. Their stories were far from over, and the multiverse would never be the same. Now that is going to be it for what if Cassandra Nova had won in Deadpool and Wolverine. What if Deadpool and Wolverine failed to, destroy the Time Ripper in time? It's just a very interesting scenario to see. I loved this movie so much. There's another what if that I'm working on, and it's going to be what if Deadpool recruited Henry Cavill's Wolverine as the anchor beam of his universe, because it would have been interesting to see Deadpool even, recruit all of the Wolverines that he saw. Like Patch, we could have saw I forget what that other Wolverine is, the one with the metal arm, but that one I know is from Age of Apocalypse, yes. So I remembered on the spot that one's from Age of Apocalypse, but again, a lot of these, different what if scenarios, I didn't want to spoil the movie and, spoil something, but I wanted to kind of dive into it and really twist and turn the storyline, because I feel like even if Cassandra Nova would have won, I feel personally that Gambit, Blade, Elektra, all those different characters could have still came together, because I don't believe Alioth killed them. I don't believe that Alioth ended up killing all of them. I personally believe like X-23, all of them are still alive, and that if they banded together and they would have destroyed Cassandra Nova and the Time Ripper, probably in time or just in the nick of time when Deadpool and Wolverine sacrificed themselves in this bone-chilling alternate reality. But if you enjoy these alternate realities and alternate scenarios, I would highly recommend that you guys subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so that you never miss an upload. I know the next Deadpool and Wolverine What If, it's going to be interesting because Deadpool's going to get a different anchor beam in a different universe. That's going to be Henry Cavill's Wolverine, and I'm going to bring in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, the 2003 Punisher, the 2008 Hulk. I'm just letting you know, be on edge, because that's going to be crazy. I can't wait to dive into that one. But thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful day. Peace out.